What's up guys, it's me Jeremy. There's quite a few things in League that happen to be fairly outdated, and amongst all of Riot's updates, there's a few things that have gone untouched for far too long, to the point where removing them or changing them completely would improve the game quite a bit. As we count down the list, we'll be measuring these things by how much they hurt the player experience and the problems they cause for the game. Let's get started. Number 5 is mirror matches. Throughout all the game modes, and especially Team Builder, mirror matches are one of the more frustrating aspects of the game that take place, mainly due to the fact that it's not a real representation of the game. In a ranked queue, mirror matches are just straight up never going to happen, and dealing with them in normal games due to blind, dumb luck is really annoying for a lot of people. The dynamic of a mirror match takes away a lot of positive aspects of both skill and fun, and turn everything into a total snowball fest with really annoying mechanics, since you know it's a matchup you would never have to deal with in a real game. It's a huge part of what makes Team Builder a lot less fun than it should be, and overall playing a mirror match in lane just straight up doesn't feel very good most of the time. And it's super weird and really shouldn't be a part of the game at all, and tends to be fairly annoying when it happens. Number 4 is the tutorial. More specifically, the basic training tutorial. This is something that is just so ridiculously out of date that it's absolutely mind-blowing that it's still in the game in its current state. Right off the bat, it has this super out-of-date loading screen and takes place on the ARAM map instead of Summoner's Rift for some reason. It makes you build Thornmail on Ashe, and overall does an extremely poor job of teaching you the game, and enforces a lot of bad habits and wrong ideas into the mind of a new player. The towers do like half as much damage, the Summoner spells have super low cooldowns, and you only get to level up one ability, and overall is packed with a ridiculous amount of misinformation and confusing elements that teach you absolutely nothing about playing on Summoner's Rift other than you have to right click to move. It's completely useless in its current state, which really sucks because new players to League of Legends have it hard enough already without feeding them a bunch of incorrect info and unrealistic scenarios. Number 3 is the level up unlocks, specifically the way Summoner spells, mastery points, and rune slots unlock as you level up. Not only does this design create a huge barrier to entry for newer players, it also makes certain aspects of the game completely unplayable for them. You straight up just can't play jungle until you hit level 10 and unlock Smite, and there's loads of champions that are a lot weaker to play until you can get the right runes set up. Sure, I can see Riot wanting to have some sort of feeling that you unlock stuff as you level up, but limiting parts of the game to players who are new is not something that should be happening. And not only that, but you put those new players at a huge disadvantage, as when you're queuing up, you will commonly face players as much as 10 levels higher than you, and so you are automatically being put at a disadvantage because of that. Leveling up should unlock things like maybe free champions, maybe some skins, maybe some XP or IP boosts, but it shouldn't get you off from what ends up being around 1500 gold worth of stats and the options for summoner spells. Number 2 is Teleport. This summoner spell has been around for quite some time, but after being in the meta for a couple of years now, it's really starting to show a lot of downsides, and is arguably starting to ruin the game for a lot of people. First off, it makes individual 1v1 outplays in the top lane significantly harder, since you're forced into taking Teleport for your team to have a chance at mid-game teamfights. And even if you do win a fight and force your opponent out of lane, they can just back and teleport in to where you winning that fight didn't actually matter unless you can secure the kill, which you probably couldn't have because you took Teleport instead of a combat summoner spell. And as well, it makes 2v2 fights in the bot lane a lot more difficult, since you always have to worry about the pressure of the opponent teleporting into your fight. And overall, this results in a laning phase that is a lot more passive, and is a lot more difficult to get ahead and maintain a lead in, since it causes bad fights to be completely forgiving, and for most results in a laning phase that ends up being a lot less exciting, and for most becomes a lot more boring, since it ruins aggressive options so significantly. And number 1 is runes. The current rune setup is just about the only argument that exists for League of Legends being pay to win, but even then it's still somewhat of a realistic one, in that the difference between someone who has runes and someone who doesn't have runes is about 1000 gold worth of stats, more than enough to decide the laning phase single-handedly, and having to drop 20,000 IP to get a legitimate rune setup is something that is just not possible for most players, who either didn't know that they had to save up, or wanted to spend their IP on champions that they wanted to play to have fun with. The current rune system is ridiculously expensive, out of date, and creates a ginormous barrier to entry for players wanting to start playing ranked. The argument for whether runes should exist at all is a little bit unclear, but it's no secret that something has to be done about them, since it affects such a huge part of the player base in such a negative way. Players shouldn't be put at a disadvantage loading up into the game because they failed to buy runes. The fact that they cost anything at all is questionable, and sure, I get that there are some valid arguments for having them exist, and giving players the customization can be good in a lot of situations, but the League of Legends rune system is, without a doubt, the #1 thing that should be removed or changed in League of Legends.